All right, it's time to talk golf. Once again with Hall of Famer Jan Stephenson, fresh off the Players' Championship, unfortunately ending on a Monday, but that's what the weather can do in Florida, west coast of Florida at this time of year. As we welcome in Jan Stephenson. Jan, I know last week you were there. I'm sure you would have liked to have hung around a little bit longer than you did, but the weather just killed it for everybody.
It was miserable. I mean, it wasn't just the rain because, you're used to having rain every now and then or even like thunderstorms, but it was so cold as well and windy. So I've really felt for the players because there's nothing worse than playing in rain delays where you got to in and out and you don't know. And when everybody was talking about it on the Golf Channel, but as soon as when you play tournaments, you're always looking at the weather when you figure out because you have an early and a late and a late and an early. So which one you're going to get?
Yep.
And it's a big deal. And, most of the players that finished up in the top 20 were in the early late way where they didn't have a lot of, they didn't even play again till Saturday after they played Thursday.
Yeah, and it could have been worse. I think what helped is that on Monday there were enough players in contention and the scoring was low. So that did give some players, because there were some really crazy names that popped up late or early enough, I should say, or mid-round on Monday where you were like, where did Keegan Bradley and Russell Knox, where did these guys come from?
Exactly. That was so weird too, because when I turned it on, I was like, where did they come from? I didn't even see them for 2 days.
Yeah.
And so but again, that was because a lot of the top players, they try to get the top players to be on television Friday afternoon and for all the people to finish work and come watch. And so those guys got the worst of the draw. You look at, and so that's why Justin Thomas's scores were so good to do that, because he was on the wrong wave.
Yeah, and I kind of felt good about Justin last week, but then once again, I think his putter let him down when it counted on Sunday, and he wasn't able to come up with. Really, there were a bunch of those golfers that were like they were in contention. The Shane Lowrys, the Justin Thomases, that just couldn't get on a roll, but Cameron Smith did, and he's just such a talented young player right now, and he needed this. He needed like the big one to kind of show everybody that I'm for real, and maybe the major's next, because he's now into the top 10, and it's really good to see. This is the parity we're talking about as well, but he has the talent to stick around in the top 10 for several years.
Well, he's young, but the thing is, he has such a great short game, and coming from Australia, he's plays in a lot of different weather. So in conditions. So I think when the majors come, he's now just taken on Bryson DeChambeau's coach to get a little more power, because he feels like if he could be a little bit longer, he's got probably the best short game on tour right now. He only had 101 putts in 72 holes.
Yeah, his putting was amazing.
It was amazing. And I mean, he's always been really good, and he's chipping and he's bunker play. And anything inside 80 feet, 80 yards, he's really, really good. Like, I bet he's probably the best right now.
Yeah,
so
I think they said
that gives him a huge advantage.
I think he said on tour he's the best within 8 feet.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And I mean, and he ran away with that category too this week.
Yep.
And that's important, because that means you think of all the save putts but he did it under pressure, which was pretty amazing, coming down that stretch for this big a tournament, coming from a small town in Australia. To do that was pretty impressive. I was waiting to see the nerves and you really couldn't see it. I mean, his stroke stayed really good.
Especially that scorecard on Monday was just crazy, because there were so many opportunities for him to just call it choke or just tank it, whatever the case may be, because he had that stretch where he had a 2 or 3 stroke lead, a 3-stroke lead, I believe, and it looked like, okay, he's going to run away with it. Then he had bogey double, I believe.
Yeah.
And then he followed that up with birdie, 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 I think. And it's like, wow. I mean, what a score. And then he had some really big par putts, too, of like within that distance of about 6 to 10 feet.
Yeah, which is really hard to do once the pressure's on. They always say that if you live by the putter, you usually die by the putter. But he didn't. He hung in there, which was really good to see. because I didn't think his swing was good enough to hold up under a big enough tournament, but he sure came carried him. And, sometimes you get lucky when things go your way. When he sniped it on 16 and it hit that kid and it saved him and he made, incredible hole. No, was it 15 or 16? But anyway.
16, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and that could have been a turnaround right there. And he could have been way in the trees, and instead he makes birdie.
Yeah. Now, last time we spoke, because we didn't talk last week because we were going to, and then the weather, and it screwed everything up. But Jeff Shane filled in, and he helped me to preview the event. And Jeff's just busy like a bee with the villages, and they're tearing it up over there. But we talked about Rickie Fowler the week before. And it's interesting because I talked about his putting game and what a surprise it was that his putting game had really lost him. And his putting stats I mentioned a couple weeks ago, it was 175 at the time ranking. And then 126 last year, 60 before that, and then 13 4 years ago. So that's the slide. 13, 60, 126, 175. And I said, that's just, what's wrong with his putting game? How can that be? And you said it wasn't his putting, but what was it?
Proximity to the hole. His shots into the green. I think his swing needs a little more work.
And that's exactly what it was. I looked at the stats, and proximity to the hole stats were exactly equal to his putting stats. 176 ranked to 175 to the putting. And keeping in mind that when we go back, look, he's had a proximity to the hole. I think his best ranking for proximity to the hole was also his best ranking year in the last 4 years for putting, which was 4 years ago when he was 13th 13th around the world in putting on the PGA Tour. Fowler, meanwhile, 69th proximity to the hole 4 years ago. That's been his best. And really, if you look at it, even when he was 60th 3 years ago, he was 118th proximity to the hole. So that swing has just gone away from him the last 3 years. And it's I don't know when he's going to get it back, but until he gets it back, it's also, as we can see here, going to affect his putting and his opportunity to win. And he can go out there and have a really good round, but he's not going to be able to put it together for 3 or 4 rounds and contend for a title unless he makes some major changes.
No, and I know that he's working with a new coach, I think, so that's going to help. But again, what I talked about last time we talked, it usually takes a couple of years to really get it to settle in under pressure. And he's a fantastic putter. That's when you said, well, his putting stats are off. I'm like, there's no way, because if his swing was as good as his putting stroke, he would be in the top 10.
Yeah. It's and you said new coach. You talking about this is a new coach, not the one that he's been with for the past 2 or 3 years. He's actually hired someone new recently.
I think he's working with a newer one again.
Good. That'll help. We can use Rickie in contention.
Oh, definitely.
He's a big
He's
help.
got a great personality, and he's very colorful, and he's very popular, and he's really good with the fans, which I like.
Before we preview this week's event, another thing I was going to ask you about was Scottie Scheffler, because he got the win at Bay Hill, and that was before the Players. And the one thing that you noticed is that he did it from behind, and he broke a Bay Hill trend. He was 21st after the first round, and that was and that ended up being the farthest back anybody had won at Bay Hill since Tiger did it in 2008. He was then 20th after the second round, which was also the farthest back, Tiger in 08 after round 2. And only the second player in the last 25 years to begin the final round outside the top 3 at Bay Hill. And it's interesting because he was 44th after round 2 in Phoenix and came back. And of course, the Gala choked. And then other players just didn't play well. And he took advantage of that, and he won that event. So he's won his 2 events from behind. So I guess the question is, obviously that's a good thing. Anytime you win, it's a good thing. But I guess the next thing we have to see from him is, can he lead events and hold on to them? Can he lead on a Saturday and then on a Sunday and close it? That's going to be important, isn't it?
You're right, and it's a hard thing to do. Some people, I was better from a lead, but some people are better from behind, and to lead and have the attention on you from the first time and first hole, that's hard because it wears on you, because people start, making a charge, and you see it on the leaderboard, and you hear the yells, and you hear the screams, and you're like, it's hard. You have to really be able to turn it off and just keep playing. And he's yet to prove that he can do that. It's really, really hard to lead a tournament. It's much easier to come from behind. And he's, like you said, he's proven he can do that. And again, maybe, he's a very, very long hitter, and a little bit, he can spray it a little bit, which is hard under pressure, to coming down the stretch if you don't have control of your ball. Yeah. I say that about Justin Thomas, and he's had a great career already, but I've seen him hit sideways shots under pressure coming down the stretch, and you're like, you can't control your ball better than that. It's like, wow.
Yeah. It also shows you how great these players can be. They can do that,
yes.
And still sometimes they can win tournaments. Okay. Lastly, I tell you what, before we get into previewing this week's event, and you were there last week, and you go to these events, and I haven't been to an event in a while, and things have changed, obviously, in our society. And we've heard these things going on. Matter of fact, we just heard it again with Osaka, the tennis player, the female tennis player, who had to deal with some unruly fan that called her out, and she winds up crying after the match. Or, I don't know if it was after. I think it was after the match, and she's crying there, and she has to even talk to the crowd afterwards to explain herself. And that's just, to me, that's obviously a player that probably had one too many, what do you call them? Participation trophies growing up. But now we're even hearing recently we've heard even players in the PGA Tour have talked about some of these issues that they're having with the crowd. With the time that you've been around, including the players, I know you didn't get an opportunity to be there for the actual tournament, but any of the events that you've been around, LPGA, PGA Tour recently, have you noticed anything different?
The only thing I've noticed differently is, especially with the PGA, is that they're signing a form that says when they register, and we've mentioned this before about the PGA or the LPGA own those pictures, but what they're saying is that you don't have to take pictures with any fans. In fact, no one is allowed to ask for an autograph. No one is allowed to ask for a picture.
Oh, so when the fan, so when they're actually walking through the door, they get past this piece of paper?
Well, it's on the back of their ticket.
It is, okay.
Because there's always one that says if you get hit, you're not, they're not liable if you get hit by a ball. But now, and the same as the PGA, and when they enter, they don't have to sign any autographs. The PGA have said no pictures, no autographs, unless there's a designated area and you have to be under 5 foot tall. So it's only for kids, and that's only if the player feels like it.
Okay. The bottom line is they're basically letting you know before you even get in there now to watch an event on the grounds. You're not supposed to approach a player, ask for a picture, autograph, any of that stuff.
Right.
Okay. So, and what about when you hear, and I think Koepka might have even been somebody that made this, talked about this not too long ago about the crowd, especially with Phil last year. But what are you thinking about, or what have you heard as far as from the crowd itself? You always hear things picked up on TV sometimes.
Right.
Can it really get that bad? Or again, is it just that the players today handle it differently?
I think that's right. I loved the gallery being excitable. I mean, when I was there, you'd hear "I love you" or "Will you marry me" kind of stuff. But I mean, it was fun to have the galleries do that nowadays. And you still hear every now and getting the whole, somebody will shout that after once you've made a stroke. Yeah. But and it's silly because I actually think they're going backwards because with waste management, that is so crazy and fun to watch that Arizona when they absolutely go berserk, and they're all wasted because they've been drinking those margaritas there. They have those margarita machines in all of those tents. hospitality suites, and so everybody's wasted
Yes.
and loud, and it's hot, and it's a fun event. There's a lot of players that won't play it just for that reason.
Sure.
And I think there's got to be a happy medium. I never really was one that noticed anything, or I'd hear it and it wouldn't upset me one way or the other. Some players really don't like it. They don't want to be bothered that they're there, and which I think is sad, because that and NASCAR were two of the sports where they were approachable, and you are up close with golf. And I always thought that was really cool, because with football and baseball you're so isolated, and even basketball. So it was really fun that golf had that, but now they're taking that away from the fan. I think it's sad.
So even like if you hear you suck or whatever, you could just, because you hear it at basketball and football games, as you were saying,
right.
You can hear them.
Right.
They're trashing the players and the teams and the coaches. And I can imagine they're even closer in golf, and they can say some really nasty things. So is that something that, again, you just believe that it's always happened, it's continuing to happen, it's just that the player today just seems to let it affect them more?
Yeah, I think so. And now if somebody does that, they're taken straight off the golf course. I mean,
Which is good. Sure.
Yeah.
I got no problem with that.
But the players don't care for it at all. Yeah, I think it's a difference in attitude. I don't want to say it's woke society, but it's, it is that they're a lot more offended at things that are said.
Okay. So are they pampered more then?
Definitely. Yeah. On both LPGA and PGA.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, now let's talk about this week's event, and we'll get in here. Let me go ahead and wrap up all of my trends and picks and so forth. Once again, international flavor at the Valspar. 6 of the last 9 winners, international players. Of course, Paul Casey went back-to-back recently, and it's unfortunate. Paul Casey in contention for the players, because it was a Monday. I gotta figure it was just so. It took so much out of him. It's just a shame that somebody that won twice in the last 3 years on an event had to skip that event this week. I'm sure the Valspar, that was disappointing for them.
Paul Casey pulled out?
Yeah. He's not playing this week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he said, I think on Monday maybe. It might have been Tuesday. No, Tuesday, I believe. That's the day after.
Must have been, because I saw his name on the list.
Yeah. He's out. They said, and again, I don't know why. I was just guessing. I mean, there were about 6 players that withdrew on Tuesday, but he was the biggest name, obviously. And I was disappointed because, and again, that's what happens when you end an event on a Monday and you're in contention. Now, maybe the other players I didn't recognize because they probably weren't in contention or whatever, but maybe it just was exhausting for Paul.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah, you have to figure after what he went through.
Yeah, and it's a big letdown. 16, you got unlucky, and it's a big letdown. Some people, they want to play because they know they're playing well, but it when you get that close, there is a major adrenaline drop. I mean, you'll be so tired on Tuesday. I bet yesterday you'd be exhausted because your adrenaline's flowing so much for hours and hours and hours, and once it goes away, you're so tired. So I bet that's what happened, especially since this golf course at Copperhead really suits his game. He loves it here, and I'm a big favorite of horses for courses, yes. Horses for courses, because it suits his eye. He plays well here, and he was playing well. So that's too bad.
Yeah, it's always unfortunate.
He wasn't my pick, though.
It's always unfortunate whenever a player that is a past champion just doesn't come back. For whatever reason, it's just always nice to see. And me personally, I know that it's probably, what is it like if you win an event, what kind of an exemption do you have? Is it still only exempt for PGA card rules, or if you win an event, chances are that you're going to be able to come back there for like at least another 5 or 6 years, no matter what's going on?
Well, you get a full 2-year exemption when you win for 2 years on every event. And then if you're hurt, then you get, on top of that, you can get a medical. But when it comes to if sometimes defending, they'll still only have the 2 years. But once you've been a defending champion, and you lived in Florida, you'd have a pretty good shot of being invited for one of the spots, the sponsors.
Like a wild card, sponsor exemption. Okay.
The sponsor, they get so many sponsor exemptions, and they usually give them to defending champions.
Yeah, I mean, because to me, I think there should be sort of like maybe it doesn't need a rule, because like you said, they're going to wind up giving them a break anyway. But I just would always, I think if you win an event, unless you're just the worst golfer in the world 3 years later, or you're not playing anymore, I just think you should always be invited back there.
I agree. I mean, I used to like that. I like that rule, especially it used to be that way with our majors. And so I used to think I could still go play some of the majors, but then they changed the rule. I like the fact that if you've won there, you've done all the media stuff, and it's popular. I wish that was a rule.
Yep. All right, now let's take a look at some of the other trends. 5 of the last 10 winners ranked outside the top 90, including 121, 154, and 205. And this is the beginning of talking about how, sort of like the players, is just how hard it is to handicap this event, because there's just not a lot of players that have had a lot of, I mean, because the players that have had the most consistency here, and let's throw Paul Casey out because he's got the back-to-back wins, but and he's not playing this week. But anybody in this field that has had some consistency, Louis Oosthuizen's on the list. I think Kokrak maybe. There's a few players that have had good runs here, but they've never won. It's the guys that have never had any consistency here that win. It's just the weirdest thing, and this is the first thing that I think you notice when you have 5 players, outside the top 90 winning here. And even Sam Burns, let's remember, he's the defending champ. He ranked 91st. This was the beginning of him becoming a really good player when he won here last year.
Right, and that's what it does once you break through. It takes the pressure off. But it is, and a lot of that is, which is hard to believe because this is, a $7.8 million tournament. But it is one of the smaller events, prize money wise. Okay. And you remember you got the Masters coming up, so a lot of players. It depends on what they've been doing the last few weeks. If they feel like they need a little more to work on their game, and then they'll skip Houston next week before the Masters, or whether they're, because there's 2 tournaments in Texas with the match play and then the usual one, and so sometimes they think, well, maybe I need to have a little more work on my game, but it's not a tournament where you're going to get 30 of the top 40. No. It's always going to have maybe half a dozen, because they have to, in the PGA rules, they can't skip a tournament more than 2 times. So they're with their rotation, they're probably figuring, I've got to, I've skipped so many, I better do this one because I've skipped it 3 years ago. Now, in saying that, it's interesting that Justin Thomas played last year here too. And that's rare, because usually if you do your obligatory, okay, I've done that one, I don't have to come back here for 3 more years. So that's interesting that he just chose to do that, but maybe he's getting ready for the Masters.
Yeah, because looking at it, let's see, Thomas played last year, Hovland played last year, and that's it as far as the top players. Morikawa will be playing here for the first time. Yeah. So will Xander Schauffele, as far as some of the other top players. So, all right, let's continue some of these trends.
But it's not a deep field. It's not a really deep field of top players.
No.
Saying that, the PGA, anyone can win. That has proven that fact.
Yes, and this is one of those events. I wouldn't, if you're somebody that likes to handicap your money and you put it away and you say, okay, where do I want to use this money? This is the week. Don't use it. Don't try to predict the winner of this week's event. 9 of the last 10 first-time winners made 4 appearances or less. Now, that was the exact opposite of players. 4 appearances or less. And 6 of the last 9 made 2 appearances or less. So 6 of the last 9 players that have won here, first-time winners, have only played here a couple of times. And then they win. That's just very strange.
Well, a lot of it's the timing of where it is on the schedule. I think that has a lot to do with it. It's the end of the Florida swing. And again, it's 2 weeks before the Masters. When this time it's actually 3 weeks, so there's a little more time. But so that's a lot of the top players are always aiming at that first major. And then again, it's a weak field as far as depth is concerned. So a lot of young players need this to get to be able to jump where they're in. Then they get to play more if they do well here. So it's it's a really important week for them. So it's a kind of an unusual field. It's never been huge, with the, like I said, with the top players. So but they're all pretty desperate to do. The other ones are desperate to do well. So it's a combination. I think I like Sam Burns' chances, except
Again, repeating.
Yes,
Paul
except
Casey
the
do Paul
problem
Casey.
is, well, yes, and the reason is that he's young enough. I mean, like I said before, playing on a Monday and being into contention and on the strain it takes on, I can't even explain how tiring rain delays are and stress, because people can, I mean, I watched what they said, oh, what are you going to do? I'm going to go watch TV. But it's really hard you can't really relax. You can't really eat junk food. You can get stretched. You can use some training, but you can't really work out hard. So you just you never know when you're going to go again. And it's really tiring. I mean, you don't sleep well because you've got to get to bed late. Then you've got to be ready to go again when the bell goes on the next day. It's just, I hated rain delays. And I never did well when I went back out every time, because it's just breaks up everything. And I was never really patient enough to hang in there. I'd be trying to catch back up. Or as soon as I saw the rain coming, I'd be like trying to make a birdie, and then I'd three-putt and then be sitting there miserable for the next hour. So it's really a test but Sam's young, so I figure, and he's got great memories here, and I think I like his chances. He played really well, and so I like him, but I like Hovland too.
Yeah, well, he was third last year in his only appearance, so he likes the golf course. Usually that's a bad thing based on the trends of this golf course, yeah. But that would be 4 wins for Hovland.
Well, but the thing is with Hovland is that he's not good leading. He's going to have to win from behind, because I've seen him blow some tournaments in the European Tour, missing a 4-footer or just not hitting a good chip shot. And in Dubai, he just blew it way out to the right because he didn't want to be in the water, and he just hit the pitiful chip.
Yeah, I should have asked you about that, because Cameron Smith almost blew it on 18. And it's like he makes this tremendous. Now, I don't know what he said afterwards about whether or not it was a mishit on 17.
It was definitely a mishit.
Okay.
He was not aiming there.
All right. So he comes out on 18. He gets the break on 17. He comes out on 18. He's got a nice cushion. And then he does what a lot of these players do on the 18. They overcompensate because they don't want to go in the water. But the thing is, with the lead he had, he could have actually hit the ball in the water anyway and been in much better position than he actually ended up, because he hit the ball in the water on his second shot. So
sure. He shouldn't have hit a driver. He should have hit an iron down there on the right.
And I don't know. Why do you, is that, and look, we don't know what happens between caddy and golfer. So but the caddy should also have something to say regarding that, right?
He should, but there's, when you've got a 3-shot lead and this important, and you're doing it, doing that, to be the caddy to pull you off something, you'd better be sure. You better be certain. And then you're going to have, this question mark in your mind. They should have talked about it. I mean, he walked off the 17 green really quickly and got to that tee as quickly as he could. He was all fired up, because they kept saying, he needs to relax and take his time and walk slowly. But he was walking faster and faster and faster.
Yeah.
And he wanted to get it over with, which I understand, because it seems like it goes in slow motion when you're leading. But I think he probably should have said, what are we going to do? Do I hit, something down there? But I know what he was probably thinking. If I hit an iron or a fairway wood, and then I hit it crooked, I can't reach the green, and I'm going to have a hard shot. So it's like you should have done. He's either got to rip the driver down the middle with his hook, and if it doesn't, it's fine. But he held on so tight so it wouldn't go left, because Hovland blew it and went left, and he thought he hit a good shot. But then, like you said, then he can drop out and hit on in 3 and 2-putt and make a bogey. And
an easy bogey, as opposed to what could have been a really bad double.
Right, right.
So, matter of fact, see, that's what I was thinking with the caddy situation, because when Thigala blew it in Phoenix, the first thing I said is, now look, I have no idea who his caddy is. I'm just guessing, as inexperienced as Thigala is, his caddy's got to have experience more than Thigala. So if I'm the caddy, I'm going, this is where you got to go. Okay, no, I'm just going to keep ripping it like I've been ripping it for the last 4. No, that's Phil Mickelson style, and you're not Phil Mickelson anyway. So just do what a lot of these other players have done on this. What was it, the 16th, I believe, and just hit it. And if you're right and you're in the grass or who cares?
No, it was
It's a par
17.
5.
Yeah.
You can't hit the ball
that
in the
one.
water. That's what you can't do. And he went ahead and did that.
Yeah,
And ruined
he
could have won if he didn't do that.
Yeah, that was really poor. And then he hit it bad. Then he really hit a bad drive on 18.
Yeah. So that's why I think, sometimes some caddies have got to, especially for the young players, you have to have a good caddy. You have to have somebody that is going to tell you, convince you, no, you're not going to do that. Take this club, you're going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're probably right.
All right, now quickly, 9 of the last 10 first-time winners did not score previous top 5 here. So again, no previous good history here usually means you're going to win. Strange. Only one current player in this field has more than 3 top 10s on this golf course. That's Luke Donald with 5. So again,
oh wow,
he's
got no chance.
No. And Gary Woodland is the last player to win on his first appearance, and did it in 2011, which was also the first time he ever won a PGA Tour event or pro event of any kind. That was back in 2011. And then here's the round by round trends if you want to take a look at those. Now, just quickly going through this field of favorites. My top favorite, even though I know it's not good, it's not designed for power hitters. I get that. But Sam Burns can hit the ball pretty far, and that's Dustin Johnson. I like the fact that he's got 2 top 10s in his last 3 events. He doesn't have a great history at the golf course. He does have 1 top 10, so that's okay. And he's coming off a sizzling 63 on Monday. So we've been waiting for Dustin to get his game going again, and maybe this is a good week. But again, the golf course kind of concerns me because it's not tailor-made for power hitters.
I don't know. They made it pretty long this week. I played on Monday in the Pro-Am. They made all of the par 3s over 220 yards. Okay. So they backed them all up with these new tees. And if they keep them there, that's going to really suit a long hitter.
Okay.
Because they're really long. So there's not going to be any birdies on the par 3s. The par 5s, they're tough this year. They had the tees moved back. So I think it's going to favor more of a long hitter this year than it's ever has. They've added extra length to the course.
And do they do that purposely because they want to attract the longer hitters?
I don't know. I just think they want to keep the scores where they're not too high.
Okay.
Not too, not too actually low.
Yeah, because it's a tough golf course.
That's what Bay Hill did. Of course, they went overboard.
Yeah.
And the rough here is pretty thick, but nowhere near like Bay Hill's.
And then you get a little weather, even though you're saying the weather should be good this week, correct?
Yes, the weather's going to be good. And the other difference is that I think the reason people say it's not a long hitter's golf course, the driving, there's a lot of tight driving. And so, but again, it depends. Like something like 16, if you're long, you can carry a lot of that water and have a wedge in instead of being back there with a 5-iron.
All right. Well, we'll see then. I feel a little bit better now about taking Johnson.
No, I think I think that's a great pick, actually, because like you said, he's coming off feeling good about his round. Still, it's his last tournament in his home state. I think it's good.
Okay.
I think it's a good bet.
My top contenders, I have Tyrrell Hatton is one of my alternates, but he's playing well. He has 7 straight top 30s, so he's getting there. One of my top picks is Shane Lowry here. Once again, Shane had the hole-in-one, but he wasn't able to get any closer over the final couple of rounds. But still, he's playing well with 6 straight top 25s, so he's one of my top picks.
Well, and especially since he kind of got screwed over in the Honda and Scheffler won, but when he got that horrible weather, that rain. And I have, he's staying actually close by my golf course that my foundation owns. And so he's relaxing, staying privately with some English people, some British, but I don't know if I think they may be Irish, but he's like chilling with another Irishman. And so they're treating they're very relaxed this week. So I'm looking for him to I think it's a good pick.
Abraham Answer has played twice here. He finished 5th and 16th. So he's definitely in contention this week. Then we're going to go to now, how about this? For the reason I'm taking Keegan Bradley. All right. He's only had 1 top 30 at this golf course, but that was a runner-up last year. He comes in feeling good. He had 5th place finish. And by the way, he was 11th the event before that. So he's a couple good starts back to back. But how about this for karma? Keegan Bradley is now ranked 66th in the world. Guess what his ranking was the last time he won?
No way.
In
66?
the BMW Championship in 2018, he ranked 66th in the world.
Wow. Maybe that's a sign. I mean, he's coming back. He's been playing better, so maybe that's a sign. And he blew it last year. He hit in the water on 16, so maybe, and he kind of gave the tournament to Sam Burns.
Yep, I remember that. Yep. Bubba Watson seems like he's he's having a good round or two, but then he has a couple of bad rounds. But he's got a good history here with 5 top 30s and 9 appearances, a couple top 5s. So he's going to be one of my alternates. And then Harold Varner is going to be one of my picks. He doesn't have.
I never thought of that. That's a good pick because he's playing really well. That's a good pick. He hit if he hadn't hit those shots in the water on 17. Was that the second day? I can't remember with all the rain delays, but he hit 2 balls in the water there, and then they were not bad shots. They just sucked back when he hit them too much spin, and they sucked back in the water, and that shook him for a few holes. But he came back again. And he won over in Europe,
Saudi Arabia, I believe, right?
Yeah, in Saudi Arabia. So he's never won here in this country, has he?
No.
That's a good one.
He won in Australia.
Yeah, he won the Australian Open there.
And the reason is because he doesn't have any positive experience here. So hey, those guys usually win here, and by the way, he's 70-1.
Oh, wow!
And he's playing the best golf he's ever played. So I think he's a no-brainer. And then the other long shot I'm going to take a chance with is Francesco Molinari. He's only played here twice, but again, who cares? Which is actually good. Like I said, you could play 2 or 3 times. Usually that's a winner. But he's made all 5 cuts on the PGA Tour this year, and he does have a top 10. And he's playing better because he had a really bad stretch. And once again, and we'll talk about this another day, but I just can't stand when golfers when they're on top of the world decide that they're going to change their swing. It drives me crazy. Padraig Harrington is the patron saint of idiotic decisions to change his swings or whatever he did. I remember back when after we won 2 Open Championships and decided, well, I got to do this. I got to change something to make my. No, you didn't. And then he's never been that great player again. Francesco Molinari wins the Open Championship.
I actually like Francesco's swing right now. And you
mean as far as the additional power that he's put in his game?
The change. Well, everyone is always looking for more power. I mean, look, that's one. The trouble is that's why Cam hit that hook on 16 is because he's looking for that extra power. And the things they do to make you hit it extra, the trouble is that you lose control. So I actually liked Francesco's swing before he went with this new powerful one, but I want to see it. I haven't seen enough of it, so I'm going to go look at it this week. And I'll let you know next week. But I do think this is a good golf course for him because you got to place your shots.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why maybe my point was that maybe as I just round out the picks here, that maybe the time he's taken the last couple of years to get more power into his game is now finally, because remember you said it takes a couple of years. Maybe now he's starting to get closer and closer to where he needs it to be. And that's where not missing a cut so far this year, I think could go a long way to finally putting himself in contention in a golf course that should fit him, as well as a field because he's one of those players that really can use a win. And this would be one of those courses that could really do well for him. So
yeah, especially with the Ryder Cup being in Italy. In a couple of years, he needs to move his game along to get in that.
He doesn't want to miss that. No question about that. All right. Sounds good, Jan. Great job as always. What's next week? The match play on Wednesday.
Yeah. Match play in Houston. Is it Houston?
Texas.
Or Houston?
Where in Texas is it? It is, I don't know how far from Houston it is. I don't know if it's in Fort Worth, maybe. No, Fort Worth is another event.
No, that's
We'll
different.
talk about it next week, but they play there every year. I'm not a big fan of the golf course, but we'll talk about that next week. And then that means we'll be on the air more than likely Monday or Tuesday. So maybe Tuesday is a good day for us to preview the
Yep.
match play next week.
Yep.
Thanks,
It's a good
Jan.
day. Okay. Thank you. Bye.